Hey guys, how's it going? Paul Harris here. It's a Sunday. I don't usually make videos on a Sunday, but what I'm gonna start doing from this point onwards is make a video every Sunday talking about career advice, different kind of supports regarding if you want to be like an auditor, finance analyst, an accountant, things like that, things that I've learned from my experience in this profession. And today's video, I'm talking about interviews, okay? How finance interview is generally structured, what you need to think about when you're answering questions, general experience that I've had during finance interviews. I've asked interview questions, I've been on lots of interviews. So I have experience in this. Hopefully it'll help you if you're looking for a new job or just preparing yourself mentally for a job interview in this profession. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Hopefully it's helpful. Let's get into it. So I've split down the interview into several parts, and I think this structure works no matter what job you're going for within the finance profession. So I've split it down. First impressions, company-related questions, so questions that the company you're going for an interview will ask you relating to that company. Then you have general questions, normally personal type questions, work-related questions, scenario-based questions. Then you'll have a task-orientated section of the interview, and then you have an opportunity to ask them questions. That's how a general interview is split down. I'll go through each section, talk about what kind of questions they ask, and what my sort of mindset is if I was going for a job interview. That could potentially help you if you're going for one yourself. So first impressions. This is just my general view, and hopefully this isn't something that you just heard generically, because obviously they say dress is, to impress, wear smart clothes, shake their hand. Pre-COVID, that's probably what you would have done. Now it's probably all online. And you want to be obviously smiling, happy, asking them questions, being a very positive person. That is a given, okay? That's just generally what you have to do. But these are two sections that I would also consider. Firstly, do you actually want that job? Is this an industry you're actually interested in? Because there's going to be questions down the line in this job interview where they're asking you why you want to be in that job, etc., etc. And it's going to be so much easier if you like the company you're going for an interview with, you know the product they're selling, you're enthusiastic. A finance role is a back office role, but you still got to be keen on what the business is doing. And I've worked for companies where maybe I'm less interested in what their product is, or I've audited companies where I'm less interested, and it is a drag. You're not going to be thinking long term about staying in that company. And as a result, you're not going to be pumped up going for an interview, okay? You want to have an interview for a career and a job and at a company that you're actually interested in, so it prepares you to want to actually put the work into trying to answer the questions as effectively as possible. So firstly, really consider if you want that job, if you like the company you're going for, because I would just not go for that interview. If you're going through like a recruiter, they'll try and persuade you to go to companies that you're not interested in, and just don't do it, basically. Obviously, this doesn't apply though if you're desperate for a job, you're unemployed, you need the money, then obviously things become a bit more limited. But if you're in a job that you're okay with and you're happy to stay there a few more months, I would wait around for a job that you're actually keen on, or one that gives you sort of like a promotional opportunity, like so you're not just moving horizontally, you're trying to be a bit more ambitious with your career and things like that. So that's the first point. The second point is think about when you're booking the interview, what your sort of time frame is. I've gone for job interviews in the past where, it's at 7 o'clock. I've been working at PwC. I've worked like a 10-hour day already or something. I haven't eaten dinner. I've gone straight to the interview. And think about what that mindset is. You might be good at working all day, not eating, and then going straight for an interview. I was not. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't enthusiastic, or I was keen on the job I was going for an interview with, but I just didn't have the energy for it. And then you had to do like a presentation, and it was like, it's just all too much. Starting to get a headache, things like that. So really think about the time that you set for the interview or whenever you're going to the company that you want to get hired in. So I would suggest setting it up for a morning. So if you have to take the morning off work, then so be it, Get yourself in the right mindset even before you've gone for the interview. So that is a piece of advice that I think would help you. So the next section I'm going to talk about is the company-related questions. These are ones that generally come up every time you go for a job interview. So these are some questions that you want to know about the company before you go, okay? They're going to accept that you don't know everything about that business, but you want to know high-level stuff that shows that you've put some interest into that company. And that is, what products do the company produce? What's their most popular product? What is their most profitable product? Do they have any seasonality in their products? You know, some products do better at some times of years and some products don't. What's their largest expense? What kind of opportunities do the companies have in the future in terms of where can they grow into? What risks do the companies face? What do you know about the company and competition and the industry as a whole? So these are some things you just really need to just do your research. I would personally, since we're in the finance profession, read their set of accounts, at least know, you know, who their CEO is, CFO is. These are questions that they might just throw at you, which it's good to just have in your back pocket and just know it like that. And that's going to be gained by just reading their last set of accounts. And bear in mind, you might be going for a job at a subsidiary of the company that you know most about, and they might do a different thing to the company you're going for an interview with. So you really got to know a broader sense and know specifics on the job that you will be doing. You know, what does your task involve? Because the more research you've done, the less they even think, you know, if they're hiring you, they're going to think this person's almost there in terms of not going to have to put as much work in as, say, another person who comes in who doesn't know the company at all. So just do your research, look at their last set of financial accounts, think about what kind of products they sell. That's what I would do in a job interview. Next section. Okay, so the next section is going to be general questions. Okay, these are personal questions that they're going to ask you in an interview. Okay, so things like what motivates you, what is your greatest achievement, what hurdles and obstacles have you overcome, what other industries are you looking at? Things that just give them a better indication of the sort of person you are. So I generally think when it comes to interviews, they're just working out whether you're a normal person a lot of the time. You know, they're going to have to work with you. You know, most likely the person who's interviewing you might be your manager. So that's another thing you've got to be aware of when you're in an interview is, you know, it's a two-way street. You're going to be reviewing them. If they're being really pushy and horrible to you, asking you, you know, really testing you, you might think, oh, I don't want to work for this person anyway. So, but you want to show them that you're a person that they can work with, you know, that you're someone who's listening to what they're saying, you're not interrupting them in the interview, but also that you know, have interests outside of work. So when they ask you things like what's your greatest achievement, think about things that you've done outside of work that have transferable skills to the job you're going to. The reason why it's good to say that you say, you know, do a team sport is that it shows you're a team player. The reason why you say that, you know, you're really proud of the results you got or that you passed your ACA qualification and things like that is it's just giving hints and indications that the things that drive you are things that are related to the job at hand, you know, and it shows that you have drive in tasks that relate to the work. I mean, you could say things that family are orientated in terms of achievements, but, you know, that might not have as clear a transferable skill into the role that you'll be doing. You know, these kind of questions, the same as ones that I'll get onto with work-related questions, things like say 2 positive qualities about yourself and say 2 negative qualities about yourself. That could be another one is you know, obviously really sell yourself on the positives, but keep it related to the job at hand. And the negative qualities, I would just not say anything majorly negative. I've actually not been given a job because I've been honest about my negative qualities and things that I'm working on, which seems like such a shame because part of improving at something is recognizing you're not very good at it and putting, you know, steps in place to improve on it. You know, no one's going to be perfect at every task. So the fact that I recognize that fault seems weird that they, you know, didn't see that as a positive thing. But really, in an interview, you just don't want to say anything negative that really shines a light on your negative qualities because you're just giving them a reason not to employ you over someone else. No, the jokey ones that people will generally say with negative qualities is, you know, I work too hard. What other ones? You know, I take on too much responsibility. You know, things that are like clearly not a negative trait for a company hiring you. But unfortunately, these are the ones that generally work because they're not looking for you to say something overly negative about yourself. So there's 2 aspects that you'll definitely be asked. You're going to be asked questions that relate to the company. Do you actually know the company you're going and being hired for? And the next set of questions are going to be personal questions just to get an indication that you're, you know, a normal person, that you'll fit in with the team, that you're motivated, things like that. They should be general questions that will come up all the time. The next sort of questions are questions more specifically targeted to how you perform in a work environment. So you'll have things like, what could you improve at? What can you bring to the role that certain other applicants can't? What what interests you about the role? What motivates you? What is your greatest achievement at work? What obstacles have you overcome at work? So, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What previous co-workers and managers would say about you? And then just general questions like, will you be willing to relocate? What kind of working hours are you prepared to do? These are the kind of questions that will come up that are more targeted to how you perform at work. Obviously, again, you want to sound very positive about all these. And you want to probably have a particular scenario that you could point to say how you've proved that. If you say that what motivates you is sort of promotions, moving up the corporate ladder, then what indication have you had in previous work that that's actually what you do? Basically, you want to be saying things like, you go above and beyond because this is what I did for this client, this is what I did in my previous work to show that I'm going above my general work. Say that you help other departments out, you work directly for the CFO on this regard, you're doing work that isn't in your typical role because you're trying to elevate yourself. So these are the kind of things you need to be thinking about. In terms of things like obstacles you've overcome, a general one I normally point to is, working with difficult people. If I think about what's difficult about a finance role, normally you get used to the tasks. It's actually trying to get information from people who don't work directly with finance. That's normally a difficult task because that doesn't fit within their job description. And how do you work with difficult people around the office? Every office is going to have people that just don't seem very personable, don't seem very easy to get along with. How would you deal with someone like that? So when they ask you what sort of obstacles you overcome, you can point to the human aspect of work and show that you're someone who rises above any controversial issues and can work with everyone. You want to be bringing in scenarios that show your soft skills, because that is a lot of a job. Is 95% of it is just working with people, particularly in finance when you're getting loads of information from different sources. So that's your next lot of questions. When it comes to things like direct questions like, will you relocate? What kind of hours do you work? You basically, you basically just need to say anything. Interestingly, I did a quiz thing for MI6 once on their website, and you can go on and say, would you be able to get a job at MI6? And one of the questions was like, what would you be prepared to do for your country? And if you clicked on anything, they said, you're not suited for this role. We don't want people who would do anything. Anyway, that's a completely separate issue. But anyway, would you be prepared to work all hours? I wouldn't even answer that in terms of yes. Yes, I would. I would be like, well, this is my evidence. I've done these kind of hours in the past. If you're coming from an audit profession, you're basically going to be saying that you've worked this many hours on a certain client. I generally go down the line of, which meets a halfway point, is I'm prepared to work as long as it takes to get the work done. I'm someone who wants to complete tasks fully. And you take a lot of pride in your work, and you don't just want to rush things. So if it means staying in the office a couple of hours because that's just getting the work done and you feel happy that you've achieved the task at hand, then if it means staying a couple of hours, then I'm fine with it. Things I'm not happy with, just on a personal level, is I'm not happy to just hang around in an office because that's the corporate environment, because the company wants you to. And at the end of the day, when you say honest things like that, if the company doesn't hire you because they want people who are just willing to hang around in the office and do nothing just because everyone else is, then you don't want to work for a company like that. You want to work for companies where everyone's being productive because they're actually getting tasks done that are improving the level of information flow around the office. You don't want to work for companies where there's just awful corporate environments. So, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do other colleagues say of you? Just say positive things. I mean, it's not, they're not trying to catch you out here. You want to give an indication that you're willing to take on more tasks. Don't say things, unfortunately you can't say, I don't know why, but you can't say in an interview anything about wanting more money. You can't be money driven, even though everyone's getting employed because it pays their salary. But you just can't really say that as being a driver. But you can say the things that indirectly relate to that, like, what is it about a job that pays more money? You're going to be taking on more responsibility. You're going to be taking on more leadership roles. You're going to be delegating tasks. So show that those are the sort of skills that you want to try and acquire from doing extra work. Don't say that you're just looking for an extra paycheck. So there's some sections there: first impressions, company-related questions, general questions, work-related questions. That's my general thought process when it comes to those. Next lot of questions are going to be scenario-based questions, the ones which go, give me 2 examples where you've done this. Give me an example of when you've achieved this, or when you've worked for somebody who you haven't been able to get along with, or where you've achieved something under a time frame, where you've been put under pressure, where you haven't succeeded, but what did you learn from that? Now, with a lot of these questions, if I go for an interview, because I think preparation's key, I'll literally download like 50 of those questions and come out with 2 examples. And I could go through and spend like an hour talking about each one of these, but the general thing that I would be thinking about when you're trying to answer these questions is you don't want to ever put yourself down. So if you're ever in a team in your previous work where they've achieved something as a team and you've been a part of it, claim it as your own. At the end of the day, the job you're going for, the only reference they'll get from the previous company is, did you work there and how long did you work there for? They're not even allowed to ask anything specific, so they're not going to. Now, that's not to say that downright lie about certain skills that you have, because if you get quizzed on it, they might start realizing that you haven't achieved it. If it's too unrealistic, they're going to be thinking, well, if you've achieved that, you probably would be staying and they probably would be valuing you more. But at the same time, if you were in an in-charge role, or there was, a manager, you and a manager worked together to get something done, and maybe the manager put a bit more effort in than you did, but the task got done. But a lot about the information of what was the task that you achieved. Anything where you're part of a team that's working towards something, I would claim it, say that you were sort of the leader in that role. What was your part to play? Stretch to the truth a little bit. That really just applies to people who are maybe struggling for scenarios when they go for these interviews. If obviously you're a very good employee and you've gone above and beyond in the previous job that you had, you will just have these scenarios to hit. But I would still write them all out, prepare them, read them in the morning before you go for the job interview, just to get yourself in the psyche that you just have those pieces of information to mind. And you want to have a lot of scenarios, because if they ask you to give me 2 scenarios where you've done this, and then the next question say, give me 2 scenarios where you've done that, and you say the exact same 2 scenarios, and then you say them again and again and again, they're going to realize that you don't have a broad range of tasks. And obviously the longer you work, the more tasks you're going to have, but it's still hard to think of these things on the spot. So you want to write them all out, and you want to, you want to say, this was what I did, this is what I learned from it, this is what I think I could do better. Really expand on the points, but be specific and really give the scenario that you achieved. Don't just speak high level and, not really painting the picture of why that was a positive thing that you achieved. The next step of an interview will probably be task related or sort of random questions. Okay, so I was asked in a job interview, how many maternity beds do you think the UK has? That just shows that you're quite an analytical thinker. You want to be able to just, for those random questions, like, how many light bulbs are there in the UK? You just want to be thinking about the information that you know and can access. I don't think it's about getting the exact question right or within a range. It's just showing that say, how many people live in the UK, or where are the most densely populated places in the UK, like London, for instance, and do you know what the population is in London? Do you know what the average salary of people is in the UK? Certain bits of information you just pick up that you can access. Do you know what the sort of how the population is split down into age categories? Now, obviously, these aren't all helping towards answering the question of how many maternity beds there are, but it'll just help you knowing certain little analytical tricks that will make you be more prepared for that question. The other sort of tasks could be, you need to prepare a report or a presentation. You'll be given like 15 minutes with a large set of data, which you just won't ever be able to get through that much set of data. You need to pick out the bits that are relevant for that task. That's very hard for me in this video to give you an exact answer of how you're going to be able to answer that question. What how are you going to be able to prepare for that? But really, my advice would be is to just Google what kind of questions they ask, what tasks you're going to be doing. So at least you're prepared mentally when you go in for that interview, that you know you're going to be doing a presentation, and you can prepare yourself for having to do something like that. You know, a presentation is generally the best when it's like short, snappy points. You pick out the key numbers that, fit in with the argument that you're going to be doing. You know, you want to be picking out key quotes, key numbers, key bits of information from the huge pack of information that they give you that is going to be able to prove the point that you're trying to express in the overarching question. I would say that this part is probably the trickiest part in a lot of ways, because you really can't fully prepare for it. So if you go in and you don't do very well, and so be it. You know, it's not like you can fully prepare for those parts. All the other questions, you can sort of get a good idea of how you should be answering them, and what your sort of skill set is. So those are the questions you should be doing very well on. And hopefully, even if you don't do as well on the task, then it shouldn't matter so much, because you've made up for it with the other questions. Then you're going to have an opportunity at the end of an interview to pretty much ask them questions. Now, the way I would see this is, instantly you might not have a lot of questions, but I would think about questions before going for that role that you genuinely want to know, and work out a way to ask them, in the nicest way possible. Like, you don't just want to go out and go, will I be promoted in 2 years? But if you know that that's something important to you, career progression, you can ask what sort of career progression there is, or, if there was a role available in that job that you're applying for, where did the person go who was applying for that role in a way? Did they move on to bigger and better things in the company? Is there opportunities like that? Do you do anything for employees to sort of give them more experience? You can even say things like, obviously the role you're going for might not have, you might not be a leader or a manager or do a lot of leadership stuff, but you want to ask questions that suggest that you are someone who's prepared to do that kind of things. Will I be given the opportunity to present? Things like you might not even be interested in presenting, but the fact that you've asked that question suggests that you are actually keen on doing the things that the employer wasn't even expecting you to do, So those are the kind of questions that you want to be asking. Will I be, if it's a job where you might be traveling around and they haven't asked you directly, will you be able to relocate? You might ask, say I was going for a job with audit and I was thinking about what I've asked now. It's like, will I be given the opportunity to go to this place or to that place? Show that you're actually asking questions that fit in exactly with the type of role that you're doing. So that's it. That's pretty much the structure of an interview. You're going to have sections on, you're going to have your first impressions. A lot of people say that a person makes their mind up within, 8 seconds of meeting you. I don't know if that's true, but if that is the case, you want to be someone who's personable. You want to be looking your best with the best amount of energy. That means having the job interview at a time that you can really focus your energy. Then you're going to have general questions about yourself. Are you a motivated person? What's your 2 good traits, 2 negative traits? Are you somebody who a task-orientated person where you like to get jobs done? Or are you somebody who just likes the process of getting the jobs done? Do you lose energy halfway through a task? Work out what your negative qualities are and try and frame them in the best way of light. Do you take on too much responsibility? These kind of questions for like your negative traits, things that you can improve at that don't overarchingly make you sound very negative. Then you're going to have work-related questions about your previous career experience that are very general in terms of, what sort of things have you overcome? What's your best achievement at work? Are you able to relocate? What sort of hours are you prepared to do? Things that are just going to give you a high-level view of what you're like in that previous company. Then you're going to have scenario-based questions. Give me 2 examples where you've done this, where you have to be very specific, have a lot of cases in mind that you can rattle off, give specific examples. But really, I would suggest stretching the truth a little bit in terms of, if you're part of a team that has achieved something, I would own that, because you want to make yourself sound as positive as possible. And, but you don't want to be stretching it so far that you're not going to be able to explain that that's actually what you achieved, or when they probe you on that point, you might not know the full story. So then you're going to have a task or some random questions. The best thing I can say for this is to actually go and research this, go on Google, check out the kind of questions that they ask. Things that can prepare you mentally. If you have to do a presentation, just prepare yourself mentally for having to do this. There's very little you can do. The papers that you're going to get in front of you to analyze, but to actually present the presentation, you're not going to know what's on them. So you're just going to have to try your best and just prepare yourself mentally that that's what you're going to be doing. And then lastly, you're going to be given an opportunity to ask them questions. This is an opportunity to think that, you're going for a job and wanting to find a company that you really like, the same as they're trying to look for an employee. So this is an opportunity for you to put the shoe on the other foot and ask them questions and make them feel like they have to sell themselves to you. Ask things that you actually care about in terms of, are there opportunities to expand your skill set? Are there opportunities to move around the company? Is there opportunities to get promotions? These sort of things, but ask them in a way ask it in the nicest way possible. These are the things you need to be thinking about. But that's it. Hopefully that's helpful to some of you guys out there. Next video on career related stuff will hopefully be next Sunday. If you enjoyed that, subscribe to my channel, like this video. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.